Socializing retail stores. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. Smart retailers in China and around the world are finding innovative ways to incorporate technology in this booming retail environment, partly to learn more about consumers and their in-store behavior. At the same time, there are opportunities to use technology to make in-store shopping a more social experience that many consumers crave, especially for luxury brands. This week on Thoughtful China, we'll hear from experts Mike Cho, Emmanuel Paget, and Howard Smith about both ways technology can be used in retailing to provide brands with valuable information about how consumers shop and how to improve the retail experience. But first, with us is Scott Amyx, founder and CEO of Amyx+McKinsey in the US, to share a global perspective about retail trends. Scott, welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Trevor. It's a pleasure to be here.
There must be technological innovations you've seen used overseas that you think could be adopted to China. Are there some examples that you can think of?
Well, what I specialize in and what Amyx+McKinsey stand for is really around wearable strategy and innovation, as well as the actual implementation of those strategies. So what we see is on the near horizon, if not immediate, are actually implementation and the integration of wearable technology. And there's several dimensions that I want to talk about. One is around the experience side. So this could be in the form of live events, cultural events. So for example, I spent some time in Korea for about 3 months this summer, where they're really heavy into that. So everything from concerts, parties, to water gun festivals, to mudslide festivals. There's an opportunity where you can actually infuse wearables to create an exciting and engaging experience for these live events. That's one dimension. The other dimension is that the retail context is very powerful, because we're just starting to see some of the implementations, but it's going to become actually fairly ubiquitous very quickly. Everything from in-store camera technology like Retail Next, that's trying to map the flow of customer traffic, and optimization of visual merchandising, as well as theft management, to things like facial expression detection, so that if you're a retailer, you want to be able to determine if that person, as they move from display to product and display, how are they feeling about that particular product or that section or that collection, as well as the interface or the interaction with the customer service associates. And being able to understand emotions is a very powerful thing in terms of how to optimize and tune that retail experience.
Do you think up to this point, that, especially the facial sort of detection technology, it sounds fascinating and a little bit scary at the same time, with consumers and their perhaps hesitation to allow such an integration of commerce and their personal lives. We, of course, have heard a lot of, concerns about if I'm wearing something that monitors my heart rate and monitors a lot of my, perhaps personal information, how do I know that's safe? How do you deal with that? Because wearables are such a core part of your business and your strategic consulting. How do you control that, since the device and hardware is really something that is out of your control?
Yeah, so the key philosophy that you have to start from is the point of transparency and an authenticity. So, whether you're a retailer or a concert organizer or a brand that's initiating a campaign, it's really important to articulate exactly what you're doing and make sure that it's done in a way that it's understandable. So for example, H&M and many other stores like that, when you actually go into a store, if you want free Wi-Fi to be able to utilize within that store, you're basically opting into a particular experience, including tracking of your movement, proximity, and this I will get into beacon technology in just a second, as well as facial recognition and other interactivity. So you're basically giving an expressive authorization and permission to say, yes, I want to be part of this experimentation, this interaction.
And so talk about beacon technology a little bit.
Beacon technology is becoming very popular. We're actually starting to see it all over, from UK to America to overseas in the Asia Pacific as well. And beacon technology, first and foremost, is not a solution that fits all per se, because what it's doing is, based on your distance, it basically activates or deactivates an application. Now, the way it's being used in the retail context is that it's trying to figure out, based on who you are and the proximity to a particular product and your interest level, it's actually giving a couple of information. One is promotional offers, if in fact there's something associated with that product, or in some cases it could be product information and social media information. This is a very powerful thing for China, is the fact that endorsement or recommendation by friends and family is so important. So if they picked up a piece of shirt, for instance, if they could figure out immediately who in their social network liked this, that basically almost kind of sells itself in a way. And there's a lot of interactivity that's working in conjunction with Beacon. So for example, one retailer is experimenting with hangers. So when you basically take off that hanger, there is a monitor or screen that shows a model wearing that apparel, so you can actually see it. In other cases, there's actual metrics, Facebook or Weibo metrics that shows how many people actually like this piece of clothing or item.
Including those from your own social network?
Yes, absolutely.
So in another sense, Beacon would also be able to activate, as you mentioned earlier, a app that perhaps you've actually haven't opened yourself. It would trigger the app to open itself.
Yeah, generally the Beacon technology within a retail context is going to be specific to that brand. So you're not going to be activating multiple applications because you want to have a cohesive, seamless experience. But again, ultimately what you're trying to do is you want to empower and equip the consumer to be able to have the right set of information, including metrics around who saw this, who liked it, what are some other photos, what are some complementary outfits or things that could go with it, so that you can actually make decisions efficiently. Now, one of the things I heard yesterday, as a matter of fact, and this is from e-commerce, Titan in China, is that when they went from internet shopping to mobile, one of the things that they noticed was there was a tremendous high velocity of conversion in terms of actual sale. Why? Because it's kind of the Costco model. And maybe China's not as familiar with the warehousing shopping model, but when you basically reduce your choice, it actually allows for efficiency in decision making. So mobile, by the sheer form factor and the real estate limitation, you're basically shrinking down the choices. Basically what you've done is, instead of having somebody look at the internet and the web page, browse through and compare and compare and compare endlessly, you make a decision quickly and come to that conclusion fast, which then translates into higher sales volume for retailers and e-commerce.
Scott, thanks for being on Thoughtful China.
Thank you.
Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor.
Been watching Thoughtful Media Group grow over the last couple of years. It's becoming more and more insightful and more useful for us in our industry to get different aspects from both client sides, from agencies' perspective, from different kinds of agencies, activation and digital. So for us, it's been a great source to be able to keep watching and understanding the landscape that's changing in China.
Welcome back. We're in the studio today with Mike Cho, Managing Director, China at Integer, part of TBWA Group, Emmanuel Paget, CEO and founder of Shop Analytics, and Howard Smith, Managing Director, China at Clarity Media, part of Aegis Media. Thanks for coming in today. Today we're talking about technology and how it can help brands and retailers both learn more about the shoppers and the customers in the experience, as well as enhance the experience for them. Let's start with the first angle. Emmanuel, what are some of the ways that you see retailers using technology?
Well, to me, it's a lot about learning from online, from the online industry, and try to bring those studies and those processes we have in the online industry into the stores directly. Of course, 95% of the retailers, maybe a bit more, they monitor their sales and they do a lot of data mining from the sales action. But they know, for most of them, very little about what's happening before the action of sales. So we're trying to use technology to help them to gather a lot of information and to try to get some insights way before the sales is happening.
So during the consumer journey, for example?
During the consumer journey, just to see who is going around your retail store, who is entering, how long people are coming, Are they visiting several stores from your brand when they're going abroad? Are they visiting your brand as well? A lot of very valuable information.
Could you name a couple of retailers that are doing a good job in terms of leading this charge in integrating technology into their experiences?
Yes, you have a lot of retailers that are moving on. I think Starbucks is one of the leading brands in that regard, and you have smaller brands that are doing that very well as well. It's clearly something that is on the move. People have been very shy because a lot of people were worried about the privacy. Now it turns to be proven that there is no risk in that regard, and all the actors of the industry have made clear that it's not going to affect that part. So now people are more keen to use those technology and to install it a lot more in their retail store. But there is still a long way to go.
And Mike, your company has spent a lot of time on the technical side, but specifically working with brands within the retail space. Can you talk about how your work affects and forecasts the trends that are coming to the retail environment?
Well, sure. I mean, technology still is a delivery system, but it's more about the content that is important. So, but what's great about technology is that it's faster for us to get the information. So the analytics and the data we get from, say, Emmanuel's company, we are able to tailor-made that for our brands, client brands, so supplier brands. For example, M&M's, understanding that the shoppers want a fun experience. So there are technologies of QR codes or some kind of a connectivity. So there's a rich content and a fun content. So then they can engage with the brand even more. But on the other side, shoppers are needing more information. So if it's infant formula, this is something pretty serious that you're feeding your baby. So, being in the store environment, there's not enough space for information. So you use technology to get richer content about nutrition, the age and diet and dietary needs. So that part, you're using technology as almost an educational tool.
And is this something that's going beyond apps? Really talking about ways that within the environment, customer doesn't have to go download an app or scan,
definitely.
Code.
So in certain instances, Walmart, for example, in the U.S., they're piloting basically just not even an app. So once you go into the store, so the entire store is connected. So you go in and they're already pushing data to you. So there's scan data, things like Weixin that you can scan. So there's ways to go beyond the app, of course.
And Howard, looking at the other side of this topic, do you think that retailers are doing enough to integrate these technologies into the experience, and also to ensure that social and social media is really being pushed forward for the customers to be able to access, for example, friends and family's opinions about products, for them to be able to share product purchases or even purchase decisions on their social networks? Do you think retailers are doing enough in that area?
Well, I think it's socializing the store is a nascent mobile marketing strategy in China. And I think the opportunity is driven by understanding the role, as you say, of friends and family in the purchase decision, and we call that validation. I think that we see the Generation 80s and Generation 90s are tethered to their mobile phones. They have localized the relationships we have with each other, and I think in addition, mobile technologies have kind of localized the relationship that we as consumers can have with brands in retail environments. So when you kind of combine, those two factors together with other factors, you kind of come up with this idea of perhaps beginning to think about how we can socialize SKUs, so that a Generation 80 or a Generation 90 walks into a retail environment. We want them to desire that SKU. We want them to share that SKU. We want them to validate that SKU, and then we want them to buy it. Either online or offline. Now or later. So I think there are a few high street brands here in China that have jumped on that bandwagon, that opportunity. Veramoda for one. But I think the foreign brands have been quite slow. Foreign retailers have been quite slow to identifying the opportunity, and that may be just a lack of understanding of the true consumer behaviour that exists here, which is very different to the West, I think.
Well, and especially if we look at the luxury segment and the fact that it's dominated by foreign brands. Obviously when you're talking about validation, when you're spending tens of thousands of RMB on a particular item, you probably want to share that and even have a bit of opinion and help from your social media circle prior to making that purchase decision. But at the same time, it seems like a lot of the traditional luxury houses are a little bit resistant to having customers take photos in stores, for example, or really, I think they sort of emphasize a more intimate and insular shopping environment rather than saying, okay, yeah, Weibo this out to all your friends and see where we can get the best deal. So that seems to be at odds with the luxury experience. How would you recommend to luxury brands and retailers to improve the socialization of their stores, but at the same time maintain the prestige that I'm sure they want with their brands?
Good question. For me, I think it comes down to just really understanding the consumer purchase decision journey. And in the research we've done recently, we've identified that there are gaps. There are content gaps. Those content gaps are SKU based, location based. Where can I get this product that I desire easily? And I think that we probably just need to sort of step back and identify what is that gap analysis and how can we fill it in a way that is going to respect the luxury brand.
Has any of your research or time spent with consumers, has it revealed any attitudes from their side in the sense that they might be asking the question, why should I make it easier for you to sell to me? And what am I getting out of this? Because the idea of retailers and brands collecting the information for free, essentially, so that they can sell you better products. I mean, how does that balance out with consumers? Do you think that eventually there might be pushback, or do you think at this point consumers really want this? What's your opinion about that?
The phenomenon of the Chinese outbound luxury shopper is quite significant. And if you talk to those people who do shop when they go abroad for luxury goods because of the price difference, they're on a tight schedule. They've pre-planned. They know what they want. They know what they desire, and they pretty much know where they're going to have to go get it from. And so I think if we can kind of facilitate that sale, maybe just a fraction more, I think that's going to drive longer term, brand preference in an increasingly competitive market.
Well, that's actually a great example, outbound travel and customers shopping abroad for the same brands that they could see and probably have window shopped here within China. Shouldn't brands, if I'm a huge retailer that's opened up 6 flagships in Shanghai, but my customers shopping here, using up my staff, using up my air conditioning and my lighting, and then they fly over to France and buy everything there. Shouldn't I be doing a better job of connecting those retail terminals and allowing that customer perhaps to purchase that product here or to derive some benefit from their domestic outlet?
Well, I think obviously from just the price difference is something that's easy to adjust. I think the trend is that they're equalizing a little bit now. But then also it's not perhaps the people who are into these luxury brands. It's not about the price, but it's more about maybe the differentiated items. So you see China edition of certain brands. You've got the Porsche with the China design or the China red. You've got other brands that has limited editions, with each of the zodiac animals. So those are very kind of tailor-made from the retailer's perspective or the brand's perspective to really entice the shopper to buy it here. So I think that's working.
Right, and I think on that note, the idea of introducing scarcity into the experience in China will help retailers here. Because if it's a mass item, chances are the customer is going to purchase that abroad if they have the means to travel. But if it is something, as you mentioned, that's exclusive for a limited time only, you have a release window that's 1 month, for example, so that person may not even have the time to travel overseas within that 1 month. That could help improve the local sales. Are there any brands that you think are doing a great job of integrating all the things that we've talked about today, from an improved technology experience to integrating social into the shopping experience?
One of the things I wanted to kind of add on with this social of luxury brands, you can't help. I mean, luxury brands are the category that you don't need a social program. It's already out there. People are already sharing it. I think the opportunity is for the luxury brands to actually manage that conversation a little bit better. So just the fact that they don't want people to share, but they have no choice. So they need to work with that versus being adverse to it. So I just want to add that a little bit.
I agree. I think that the luxury brands need to work with this trend. It's not going to go away. Mobile's not going away anytime soon. And as I say, we're in continuous contact with our friends, and validation is important. So, in terms of the brands that are seizing this opportunity, I think Burberry is a brand that's beginning to understand the opportunity in the omni-channel consumer. So it'll be interesting to see how their strategy develops over the coming years. But that would be my suggestion as a brand. Yeah.
It seems like they have a good connection over at Apple now that could help accelerate that.
I think one of the great brands that's starting to do this well, I believe, is perhaps M&M's out of Mars. They've got the store. Of course, you can buy M&M's at any outlet, but again, this exclusivity that's happening at the store level, at the M&M's experience. So you're buying the experience versus the product. Also, they're working on an offline in a very different way that, candy is an impulsive purchase, right? You got a sweet tooth for now and you can't get it, but they do programs where you have special editions. You've got customized packages, or even like gifting. So these different behaviors and different shopping behaviors that people are in need of online, they're tapping into that. Versus buying, selling you just cheaper bags of candy. They're really using that, the on and offline, hand in hand for their brands and products.
So basically, it's not restricted also to luxury. It's basically any brand, at any level, can be integrating more of this technology and social media into their strategies. Mike, Emmanuel, Howard, thanks for being on Thoughtful China.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Youku, Tudou, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo, WeChat, and Twitter, and join our LinkedIn group. We'll see you again.